People usually fall into one of two camps on AI. It's either the most exciting tool since BIM, or it's the start of the robot uprising. In this episode of the Design Build Delivers podcast, brought to you by Archons, we aren't going to make that decision for you, but we are going to talk about how AI is already actually reshaping design build today, no matter which camp you're in. I am your host, Erin Looney from the DBIA headquarters in DC. Joining me for this conversation are two people with a much more level head about AI than most of us. Brian Skripak, DBIA's Director of Virtual Design and Construction, and Paul Hedgepath, Director of Virtual Construction at MJ Harris. Together, they share how AI agents are changing the way teams work, from predictive scheduling to solving problems in the field. We are starting today's episode by taking a pulse of the industry on artificial intelligence. Are teams, firms, and owners viewing AI adoption as an exciting opportunity, a necessary evolution, a source of concern, or something else entirely?
Since Brian, both me and Brian are kind of from the VDC world, I would compare this to BIM 20 years ago. So when we're starting out, I'd say 2005, and trying to get building information modeling and 3D coordination on job sites, everyone is a little hesitant, right? These are different types of methods in terms of coordinating that they're not used to doing a lot of it on site. But once we got a couple jobs under our belt, and then the superintendents and the people were starting to see that benefit, then you start to get the need to have it on projects. So I see the same thing for AI, is people are still hesitant, just like they were 20 years ago with BIM. But then when it answers a question for you, when it solves a problem, then you start to get more buy-in.
I totally agree. I see the same thing. It's in a level of excitement and apprehension. It's kind of the fear of the unknown. A lot of times the building industry, the construction industry, see things as, if it's not broke, don't fix it. Not that there's not a lot broke with our current processes, but hey, it's just like you said, Paul, right? As soon as you show value in that, everybody's kind of head turns pretty quickly, and they say, well, wait a minute, how did you get that information so quickly? Or how did you find that issue? Oh, I did it from AI. Then everybody's kind of ears perk up. You're like, hey, why aren't we doing this everywhere? And it is exactly the same as BIM. You definitely see the same cycle. So I'm not quite sure yet, but prove it to me and then I'll jump in.
And what's cool is I'm using AI with BIM right now. So I had a coordination meeting, and we had issues with a pad we're about to pour, and we had to figure out if we had the right pump submittal for this stuff. Because we have Procore linked in with our AI solution, I was able to go in here and it told me all the pumps that have been submitted, the dates and everything, with one question, right? And one question, I instantly get the answer. So I don't even have to open Procore, open other things and dig through it. And I'm not even the assistant PM dealing with the submittals. I wouldn't even know. I kind of know where to look, but it would take me a while. But because I just knew what to ask, it knew where to look, and it was able to give me that information. Just small things like that continuously happen, whether it's in BIM with a coordination meeting or guys in the field that are able to text, just like they'll text me or someone else, they can text the AI, and then they're able to get solutions based off that as well, any kind of information they need.
And so far, we have had AI without the arrival of a Borg cube, so I'd say it's a win. No Skynet. Everything seems to be working the way it's supposed to.
So far.
Yeah. The whole conversation changes when that happens. But for now, we're safe. Let's get into some of the things it can do, from predictive scheduling to safety monitoring, document automation. There are a lot of recent industry reports that are spotlighting some of these things, these use cases of AI across the AEC landscape. I read one recently from Sphere Partners and another one from NetSuite, who talked about emphasizing dynamic real-time scheduling. They were shifting crews, they were shifting materials based on conditions that were changing in real time. Let's get into some examples of what you've seen.
You mentioned schedules. So there are schedule-specific applications out there that just deal with scheduling, but we also have a scheduling agent built in with our solution that allows us to take the P6 XDR export. We can also directly integrate, link it with P6, which is, for those unfamiliar, is a construction scheduling software that most general contractors use. And then we're able to analyze this. We have our 2-week scheduling meeting and analyze it to see any types of risk that are involved in the schedule. So how these scheduling meetings typically work is we'll have all the foremen around the table. We'll have our superintendents, PMs, and everybody, a lot of people in the room talking about tasks. But as opposed to spending that time trying to figure out that risk, why not use an agent built out with all the other agents we have in one solution to find that risk for us. And then we can take that risk and put those in agenda items up front. So talk about those things first, as opposed to it being less of a discovery meeting during the scheduling meeting. And for everything that I'm mentioning, it has to do with data grid, and it's specific agents that are built within data grid. So I'm trying to keep it all in one ecosystem, right? As far as this whole AI ecosystem that has all these different purposes, but then also is separate from a management system or something that would keep you married to one thing. So the good thing about them that I like is the integrations and the connectors. They were a connector API company until they were an AI company a couple of years ago. They connect to everything. And that's really the first step, I feel, in really getting something to work, is to have it actually talk to the things that you use, whether it's Procore or Autodesk Build or whatever you're using. And then have the ability to talk to lots of different things if you ever do switch management systems or those types of things. And then another thing that I was specifically interested in was how they use your data. Are they training their main model off your data, or are they keeping that localized within your own space? Today, maybe it's not a competitive advantage, but maybe a week from now, you might have an RFP agent or a hard bid agent that someone else is using, and then their data is trained on yours. And it sounds far-fetched, but if you think about where we were with AI not just 3 years ago, it's not. So having those methods in place now will protect us in the future, to where agents are still smart, but your proprietary data stays with you.
This might be a bit of a stretch, but as you're saying that, and as I'm watching tools come out, what this starts to feel like, if it doesn't speak to one another and it doesn't integrate, is a lot like streaming. If you were early adopter of streamers, like I was, every streaming service that came out, I was right there. Now I have all these separate accounts, and everybody's bundling them together for about a quarter of what I'm paying for one. And I'm thinking, well, but then the problem is I lose the account that I have. It all has to start over. It sounds like these tools, like Data Grid that you were just talking about, and then all the other agents that you bring in, are aware of the importance of avoiding the stream bloat.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. Because if you got one tool that does one thing, then you got 5 other tools that do different things, and it's all AI, that stream bloat can go to your field team. And there's already tech fatigue already. Nowadays, even with BIM on some project teams, some trades still have that fatigue that may not be exposed to it, even though we're 20 years in. Keeping that tech fatigue at a minimal is huge. And I think the more you can keep it in one app that doesn't marry you to a bigger app, this management system or other things, is better. The third point that I was looking for is something that allowed you the ability to build your own agents and have an agent studio, because some things limit you and you can only use the agents they have. We have an OAC meeting packet agent that I'm working on, and this is something that I recognize, and it's probably an issue with a lot of GCs, is you got to pull all these things from different places to do a owner, architect, contractor meeting packet, and it takes time. So why not just make an agent that does that for you? And it's pretty easy.
So Brian, let's talk to you a little here. You're out there going to baseball games at every park, telling us you're working on stuff. But when you are out there at baseball
awesome
games,
gig.
I know, it sounds
AI's
so
at
great.
the baseball game.
Yeah.
Oh, we could have a whole conversation about robot umps. So where, Brian, when you're talking to people, are you seeing untapped opportunities for AI? And are there any processes that design build teams should be rethinking with what you're hearing in mind?
I think Data Grid's a great example of one of those things there that, Paul's talking about, the connectivity to all of these other programs. That's design build, it's collaboration, it's connectivity, it's transparency across those different outlets, which is key to be able to look for ways that we can access data, have that immediate response, finding where there's discrepancies. Look up something about Air Handler 2, right? Well, wait a minute, I got 2 different responses here. Where am I finding this?
Yeah.
We're also looking for opportunities to be preventative about issues in the field. And I think that's a really big one that I'm excited about and seeing where it goes. Whenever you hear a conversation at different conferences or something, there's different levels of where you're going to with some of these discussions. It's like, oh, ChatGPT bad, it's going to steal all your information, this, that, and the other thing. And it's like, I feel like people just get tunnel vision on one tool or approach and not understand the real breadth of what AI is starting to do and the preventative opportunities, looking for gaps in schedules, looking at safety issues on site, quality issues of comparing what's installed versus what's there, The way that things are now integrating into building information models, like Paul talked about, those are the real opportunities that people see. It's not about rewriting an email. And,
Although it's very good at that.
it is very good at that,
I use it for that all the time. Tone checking.
There's
tell it
so
to take
many
the dashes out.
opportunities.
I will defend the M
AI
dash.
dash. The M dash, yeah.
It's such a frustrating thing because the M dash is a glorious piece of punctuation. And not to cut you off here, Brian, but you did make me think of a question kind of within another question, which is, are there any similar issues to that in construction? So anyone who's been paying attention to ChatGPT specifically knows everyone thinks they're an expert at identifying something created by AI, and it's even more interesting how bad people actually are at it. Is there something like that? Is that something the AEC industry might need to think about?
The same way you talk about generative design, right? I think back to Phil Bernstein's presentation at our conference a couple of years ago, where he talked about AI and design build, and he said, design me a library. He's like, this is a pile of crap, right? This is garbage. It's not able to rationalize all of these different interactions of things. I think a lot of times you look at quote unquote design images that come out of it, and they all look the same. They all look like some version of a Zaha Hadid curvy building, right? And it's not. I think to another conference that we were at, and this was a water wastewater presentation, and there was this generative design AI based tool where you just plug in some base criteria and it's just spitting out iterations. And the presenters were like, hey, this is what we're doing, this is what we're seeing. Here's an owner talking about the feedback they got in a request for a proposal, where typically they only may get 2, maybe 3 options over a course of multiple months that people were able to crank through. And he's like, hey, this other company came in and they gave us 15. And, the person was talking, yeah, a lot of the stuff was garbage, but if I can go through and sift this, and maybe I start to see things that I didn't think about, and I say, hey, if I take this little nugget from over here and put it with this piece, what if this starts to do things? And the opportunity to output multiple ideas that somebody's not really able to process, and then merge those together into a really unique, high-performing, sustainable solution is where it's at. And then at the same time, the real buzzkill at the end of the presentation, I remember this guy stood up in the back, goes, you want me to stamp drawings that were done by a computer? I don't think so. I'm not putting my name on it. It was just like totally took all the air out of the room, right? And everybody was getting excited about what this opportunity could be and start to look at things differently. And there's went poof, and then it was gone. So it's a balancing act, right? And we need leaders like Paul who are out there doing it and sharing these stories and sharing these opportunities and where they're driving value, how they're solving problems, how they're mitigating risk, how they're increasing safety and performance on the job site. That's what we need today to really get past that. And people are embracing this. Those are the really great stories and the champions who are out there helping to move this forward.
One of the exciting things I think about it is the base models. So as these models keep coming out, once a model comes out and you have all your agents built out or whatever you are using in your company, the model automatically makes it better. As opposed to, say, if we're a designer waiting on a new Revit update, right? You got to wait till next year, and then maybe they have the feature you want. Or for a general contractor, maybe it's Procore or Autodesk Build. All these solutions that take programmers time to do it. Whereas when you build out an agent, like there's automatic video capability with one of our agents that were built out because Gemini 2.5 came out. And then you're able to walk the job site, process the video, and see any type of safety updates or just general updates from the project with the same agent because it had the different base model. So you're seeing this happen overnight, and the speed is there from all these Microsofts and these Googles making all these base models for it, but then your agent just takes advantage of that. So the sooner you're able to get and embrace this type of AI mindset and use it in your company, you're going to have an advantage because of the speed of AI in general.
It's sort of like hacking your Roomba. If you have the iRobot brand, it says, we encourage you to hack the Roomba.
I have not hacked my Roomba. I'm going to go try though now.
Oh, well, when it comes to life, I did not give you the idea.
Oh, man. I got one upstairs and downstairs. I love the Roomba.
Oh, well, then they're going to team up.
No, they're going to be put in my bed in the middle of the night. We're here to overthrow you, master.
Yes. Thank you for the upgrade. Now die. Brian, you and I have talked a lot about the standpoint that AI is not going to take your job. It's the person who knows how to use AI who will take your job. I'm talking to both of you here, but that is a conversation Brian and I have had. So what, Brian, does that mean for DBIA members? Think about where firms maybe should be focusing upskilling efforts.
The first thing is you got to do it, right? You need to start small, do something, find out what your big pain point is, and find out how AI can help address that. One of the things I was actually going to ask Paul was going back, because we're talking about this and trying to bridge the gap across multiple perspectives. We keep talking about AI agents. We talk about AI in general, AI agent. Paul, do you want to talk a little bit about what that term means? You're talking about, I have multiple agents that are doing this, and people might think I have AI doing this. So before I answer that, I think it might be good for Paul to maybe mention that, just to raise awareness to that terminology as well.
When we talk about agents, we're talking about a specific thing that's a tool for a specific thing. There's also AI agency, right? So working on behalf of someone. Now you can do automations with these agents to where it'll work on a schedule and do that type of thing, as opposed to it kind of going off on its own and doing its own thing without your instruction. That's more of a, in my opinion, like a artificial general intelligence type of thing that's not really around here yet. AGI is a term that a lot of people use. Really, I think we're still in a narrow AI is what they would call that world right now, to where you have AI specific things or tool specific AIs, like the scheduling agent, those types of things. So people, when they say agent, sometimes they'll talk about it in different ways, right? An agent, like I talked about, or agency, and working on behalf, which is partially right with automations as you can do in data grid and that kind of stuff.
We just want to make sure that our members understand what it is, and something that they're hearing and being able to understand. So I think that's a big deal.
And we're trying to avoid the uncanny valley. Tell people we are not in the uncanny valley at this point in the construction industry. You said artificial general intelligence, which they just did the update to ChatGPT recently that will almost do things for you. It's a little creepy. And people immediately, oh no, I don't want it paying my bills. It's going to steal my money. No, it isn't going to do that because it isn't at that level yet. Yeah. And I think using that comparison of, we've created a villain out of ChatGPT. And I think that helps understanding what it can't do, might be able to bridge to what you all are talking about specific to construction.
Yeah, you're right, because it is, in the end, I mean, the agents that we're using are based on the models like GPT. I mean, you can use GPT-4o and other ones with the agents I'm using. You can pick all the agents, whichever one you want. So you're right. It's the same thing. It's just with the software that I'm using, it allows you to have the direct connectors into the programs that we use every day. And then you can build the agent on top of that within that program that utilizes those connectors. Now, if you try to do the same thing, say with a ChatGPT, you're going to be limited in what you can do. You can't dump a whole set of drawings into ChatGPT and it can't analyze it all. There's a limit to a lot of that stuff. To whereas with the data grid or the software that we're using, you're able to do the connectors. That's another kind of difference between the two. But when you think about AI in general, the base models and things are the same.
For DBIA, this is one of the things that we want to continue to explore, right? We just did a blog post on it. We've had this as an opportunity at the VDC Leadership Exchange. We've had presentations on it the last couple of years. We're going to have other companies that will be talking about AI at the expo, at the annual conference. We want to keep bringing this information to our membership and, using the networks and the colleagues and the peers that we have out in the industry like Paul to help spread the word and educate. This is another opportunity to collaborate and be more efficient. I think that's a big thing, right? Productivity and efficiency on the job, access to information, continuing to find better ways. You can kind of go back to the BIM analogy, right? This was, hey, how can we use this technology to better understand the buildings we're designing, constructing, the roads, whatever they are? How do we do a better job at accessing the amount of information we have on projects in disconnected, dispersed locations and silos? This now starts to bring it all back together. We can access information and understand it and translate it and communicate more effectively. So just continuing to make us all better at the work that we're doing.
And what I'm excited about is the designers using AI or starting to use it. And what are those use cases that are out there? If anybody wants to reach out to me on LinkedIn or email, whether you're using it during conceptual design development, or even during the CA process, and how that might work out for you is I think there's a lot of opportunity because there's a lot of information that you have to manage. I mean, sometimes your design cycles are lasting 2 years, right? And you're going through different iterations of different things and a lot of stuff back and forth, just like we have in construction. So I think there's huge opportunity in the design world for this, and I'm excited to see where it goes.
The Design Build Delivers podcast is brought to you by Archons, your technology optimization partner, helping design build teams streamline workflows with Autodesk solutions, expert support, and real-world training. Ready to work smarter and faster? Get tools, insights, and schedule your AI readiness check at archons.us/DBIA. So you mentioned LinkedIn, and now you're going to get a bunch of requests from everyone who listens to this show.
Yeah.
Other people can creep on your account like I did.
Do it.
In a LinkedIn post recently, you described choosing an AI company as more like hiring a teammate. And I'll be honest with you, that's how DBIA's comms team, that's how we think of our ChatGPT account. Our ChatGPT is called Charlie. He is kind of like an intern, useful, speeds things up, but he doesn't have the depth and knowledge and commitment to DBIA or our members that a human teammate has. So by comparison, how did MJ Harris approach that mindset shift of understanding it as a teammate and not as a tool, but without getting into that creepy territory of calling it by name like us?
Well, we do name our agents, so.
Oh, good. We're not the only one.
Maybe I'll call the scheduling agent Speedy or something. But, yeah, and I say that because you have to really understand the instructions of the agent and what you're telling it to do. When you're doing the instructions of the agent, you're almost giving it a job description like you would a person in the HR department. So we're telling the scheduling agent, hey, you're a scheduling expert. You're going to look for these types of things. And this is all text-based, just written out. And then you can also tell the AI to write the instructions for you. And so it's like giving itself instructions based on your description, and then it makes itself even better. And so that's kind of weird, but that's what it's doing. And then so you're training this thing to work on your behalf to some extent as a expert in something. So that's where I kind of relate that whole HR partnership type of thing. And then going more wide and saying, yeah, in terms of the company that you're working with, it's doing the agents and everything. You want to make sure that it is a good relationship, because it's more than just saying, yeah, I'm going to use Revit instead of ArchiCAD, or I'm going to go use this. You're actually trusting a company to help your entire company and your entire process and really make everyone better in your company and every process you have, not just modeling or not just scheduling, everything. When you're talking about that, it really does matter the type of AI company that you partner with, and making sure, the security's in place, making sure that they're not training on your data, all those checklists that go in place to make sure it's a good fit, right? Just like you would with any employee that you hire, because it really is acting more like an employee than it is a piece of software.
I don't know, how much you're seeing this, like programs like Test Fit from a large scale planning exercise. I think we all think on the design side, we think more about, the visualization aspects of it. But I think that's another one that you start to look at from large space planning efforts, or it can be pretty significant, and saying, hey, I need this many apartments on a spot this size, and the ability to start dragging things around and having all of these complex configurations and spatial relationships being done in the background and laying out an optimized solution is pretty powerful.
Yeah, it's amazing just what that one product alone is able to do. I mean, I used to work for an architect too in the late 90s, and just programming phase, you probably remember this too, Brian. I mean, you're just coming out with different schematic design layouts, blocks with colors.
Bubble diagrams.
Or they actually use markers and color the different ones. The diagrams. And now you're just pulling this thing around, doing whatever you want. It's giving you dynamic feedback, which is amazing.
That increase in productivity right there, because by the time you lay everything out and copy it around and move, okay, there's one. And then you do back in the CAD days, it was save as option 2. Redo everything. Option 3. Final.
Final. We still do that in comms. Final, do not change. So my dad actually, in this, as you were talking about that, it made me think of, he was an engineer. And at some point, just arbitrarily, he said, you need to learn how to use AutoCAD. And I was like, for what? And so he really made it his mission to think this was some kind of universally applicable tool that was going to follow me through life. And
little did you know.
Today you're here talking about
2025.
Brian, how does delivery method affect a team's ability to bring in AI in any way? Are there characteristics that help or hinder adoption depending on your delivery method?
Well, I think the individual team members can use things much in the same way that Paul talked about, but I'll relate it again back to BIM, right? If it's a hard bid scenario, Paul gets on the job. Is he going to have access to any of that past information that was on that traditional, well, the architect and engineers contracts? So no, he's not going to be able to go through that information and see it, or he's just going to have the drawings. And now he's got to feed them in there. And there's still a level of historical knowledge and information and decision making and things that the builder isn't going to have access to just based on those contractual silos that are there. So I think the individual team members still have the opportunity to do things on their own, but there is another level of collaboration once you open things up and you're in that larger team focus moving forward, like you would see in design build or progressive design build job. And having all those team members there at the beginning to be able to share that information, access it, it is a different scenario.
I think the design build scenario would lend itself to more collaboration among the teams earlier on. I think the sooner the better. I mean, with even with BIM, like you said, being able to collaborate and talk about, maybe the GCs being brought in at DD or I guess with design build even earlier. The longer the designers and the builders are teamed up, the better, and the more that lends it to longer use of AI.
A lot of what we've talked about today has hinted at this question, more or less, for better or worse. A common theme in specifically AI conversations in the AEC industry is its potential to overcome everyday inefficiencies that drain time and drain talent. That is universal outside of the industry, but I'm bringing this back to LinkedIn stalking you again. Paul, you also talked in one of your posts about the absurdity of paying highly skilled professionals to spend hours searching for one spec in a sea of PDFs. So from your vantage point, how are AI agents solving that problem? And more broadly, how should the industry be thinking about these tools as this type of productivity multiplier?
We have an agent called Deep Search, and that's exactly what it does. It just finds stuff. It's probably the most commonly used one. So the ability to find something instantly is pretty substantial, and then able to find it in the field, because we have questions all day long because we're experts at building, but we have to build per the set of drawings. The drawings spec are the contract, right? So we're having to build and adhere to that. But also you have a whole bunch of ASIs and design changes that come out all throughout the project. Maybe you have over 100 RFIs or more coming out to answer things that we find as we go through this process of being an expert builder and then asking the design team, hey, these are the things we think need to change. Well, all that has to be tracked. And there's all these different members that are all involved in it that may not have exactly written the RFI. They may have not have been exactly notified about the ASI. Everyone is notified, but maybe the guy actually putting it in didn't get the email. And there's all these different types of ways that people can miss information. Once we've gone from, say, server-based and siloed management systems like having Prolog, then the architect had Nuforma, then the owner had something else. We're getting closer by using things like Procore, Build, and other stuff. But AI is going to take us to the next level to where not only do we have centralized information, still a whole bunch of information, but now we have centralized information that everyone can get to easily. And it will actually answer questions specific to the problem that you're having, as opposed to you being the librarian and trying to find something. Now you're actually the construction expert, getting the information you need when you need it to where you can move on and add higher quality tasks to other things. When it gives you that information, it's not only giving you information, it's actually citing where it came from and showing that exact document that it pulled it from, to where you can not only get it, but you can trust it. There's no hallucinations or anything like you would have in ChatGPT when you're dealing with a construction-specific agentic AI solution, because it's going to pull exactly what it is that it's getting the answer from.
Librarians everywhere are wincing at you, basically just making them obsolete. But
well, hey, librarians are still around, but they had the Dewey Decimal System, and they had the little card. I remember the card things and the flipping
card catalog.
Yeah, the card catalog.
I remember that too. The cabinets are people's furniture now, and you're like, oh, look at this cool thing I have. And if you ask somebody what is that, they don't know a lot of times. Brian, are you seeing some of the same things Paul just talked about in your conversations?
Yeah, we are. This idea of being able to focus on high value tasks and using technology to do the more mundane aspects and find information is a big issue. It's a challenge that we have. Listening to some of the things that Paul's mentioning and thinking back to where we started with this, well, when we were back in the BIM days, right? We first started this, like, how would a project manager God forbid they open up a Revit model. I don't want to open the Revit model. I don't want to open the Navisworks model. I don't want to go in there and try to find anything. I'm going to spend 10 minutes typing an email to send to somebody to go do something. Now they're just opening something, typing a question, getting all that information immediately. They don't have to find out what sheet it is. I don't find out what folder it's in. They don't find out what bid package it was from. It's all right there. And, thinking about the time to get an answer and answer a question out on the site, whether you're an architect, an engineer, a builder, a trade contractor, whoever, it's just right there. It's accessibility, it's speed, and it's accuracy.
This is not a completely new question. This has been a theme throughout our conversation, but let's focus a little on how AI-powered assistants do help bridge gaps between the office and the field. Maybe you've got a real-world example where an AI tool solved a coordination issue before it became a bigger problem.
One example would be waterproofing that you have to have around the edge of a concrete wall, and then whether tape has to be on that corner or not. So this is a question of whether or not a spec required, whether or not it's a requirement in the submittal. You're out there in the field, you text the field agent, and it tells you, yes, there needs to be tape required. It not only pulls the spec up, it shows you the location, but also pulls the submittal up from that waterproofing and shows the cut sheet with the piece of tape on it. You can see it instead of walking in the trailer and spending 30 minutes trying to find it or asking an assistant PM or somebody to dig it up for you. With our field guys, most of their value to us is going to be in the field, managing those guys and making sure that there's the highest quality work being performed and using their expert constructability brains out there all the time, make sure things needs to be happening. So if they're able to get something answered and not be that librarian, then it's more value to the next thing because they get 100 problems a day. That's what they do, is they solve problems all day long.
Paul, have you seen, the same way that you're talking about in the field, I'm thinking you do a lot of healthcare projects, right? You're in healthcare labs.
Yeah, we're 80% healthcare.
So the owners and their operations teams, are you seeing them starting to utilize this? They got to keep equipment up and running. It seems like a natural fit for them to start extending this information. If there's a piece of equipment that's down, they got to get it back up and running because the research department might be down or something else isn't functioning. Is that the same opportunity for them?
I think it is. I've had some owners that have started to ask me about it, that are looking at it, some big healthcare owners. They see the value, not only in operations, because you think about it, we're designing and building this thing in 4 years, and then these guys are maintaining it for the next 30. So just like you would have any type of facilities maintenance solution, you want to have the same type of solution maintaining all your data. And why not use Agent AI to do that? But at the same point, what I've heard from owners and what they've said to me is actually managing the design process too with it. As they're hiring these architects early on, using AI to be on the same page about program management, about the changes that are happening, codes. These are a lot of things that they're concerned about early on during the development of a hospital. And that just carries on throughout the project during construction. And that's another value of having, if you're an owner, having something that works with everything, right? Works with all different types of softwares, because most owners don't require a GC to use. Sometimes they do, but they're kind of getting away from that a good bit to where we can all use different management systems, or an architect can use a Revit or whatever else they're using. But having something that connects into all that comes into a main database that allows you to manage that stuff through an AI is important to an owner.
So we've talked a lot about the good things for the most part today. Let's look at barriers now. Let's look at things like data silos, workforce training gaps, integration challenges. This is the type of stuff that's consistently cited in the articles that I've been reading about, the biggest obstacles to effective AI adoption. So both of you, different perspective. Paul, what kinds of groundwork, whether infrastructure or culture based, are you seeing, and what needs to be laid before these agents and AI in construction can thrive?
You have to solve a problem for somebody, and then you have to have it all set up and try it yourself before you just go out on job site or go to your design team or whatever and say, hey, try this, because it has to have the right instructions and the right data connected. So there is a little bit of setup. It's not like a massive amount of setup like me trying to learn Revit. When I went from ArchiCAD to Revit in 2007, that took a little while. It's not like that. So it's really a couple weeks. You make sure that your agents are the way you need them to be. Get with whatever provider you're using. From my case, it was DataGrid, and getting with those guys and making sure that it's giving us the output that we want. Because the last thing you want to do is get in front of somebody and ask you something, and then it tell you something that you didn't expect, Not that that's going to happen a ton if you have your agent program right, but if you don't, it will. It can only pull in the data and give you what you're asking it to give you. So just having a good understanding of that, because along with tech fatigue, specifically with AI, you can have lack of trust in the AI. It's so popular in culture right now that people are hesitant to go all in and saying, oh, well, this thing can't build our building, or this, just like what Brian was saying when the guy stood up talking about digital plans. I'm not going to stamp that, right? It's not a big lift. It's just something that you got to make sure you do. Just don't go in head first, not knowing what you're doing and getting in front of somebody with it.
It goes back a little to what you were saying about hiring a teammate. You wouldn't hire somebody without really thinking through, this person needs to be able to give us these things. And it's similar in a lot of ways to that. Brian, are you seeing the same type of roadblocks and obstacles in conversations when you talk to DBIA members or prospective members?
Yeah, I think it's the same, right? And again, finding these commonalities of other things is people, process, technology. What challenge are you trying to solve? I think trust is a big issue, right? And that's, I think, one of the things you get into. We talk about that all the time at DBIA with trust, but you can't just throw software at something and expect it to fix it. Like Paul said, what challenge are we trying to solve? Is there an opportunity to use an AI agent to solve an issue that we consistently have on projects? Build the process around it and implement it. That's how you make things successful. It doesn't matter if it's AI, it doesn't matter if it's BIM, it doesn't matter if it's a scheduling software or whatever. You have to know why you're doing something and apply it. And I mean, I think just one of the big reasons we always say, it always comes back to people, process, and technology. I think the other hurdle is again, just the apprehension, right? People need to see value in what you're doing. And I think anytime we can show an ROI to a task, that's the biggest thing to making the pessimists get on your side. Hey, we used to take us this long to do it. I just did it in this time frame. Our documents aren't getting any smaller. Our drawing packages aren't getting less. The specs aren't getting smaller. We're getting more and more and more data and information. We always talked about data structure too. And now AI is starting to allow us to not worry as much about data structure, right? Because now we have this ultimate access to everything that's there to be able to go out and search and find it. Technology keeps evolving and innovating and helping us get past the challenges that we've created for ourselves. We went from drawing to digital to BIM, and there's more and more information. And now we got to focus on data structure to get it there. Now AI lets us sift through everything. You got to trust and innovate and move forward.
Yeah.
Let's say a design build team is just beginning their AI journey. They want to be part of this. What is one early low risk win they could pursue to sort of build that comfort and confidence without needing a full scale transformation? Maybe they're not ready for the Borg cube.
I think just finding stuff, right? Search and find, and that's something you can do, and connect in with the documents that you have and search through things. I think for design build, from a designer standpoint, just looking for commonality between specs, right? When you go into the next job and that kind of stuff. From a construction standpoint, just reviewing documents and being able to find things quickly and getting acquainted with a project quicker by asking it things. Tell me about the plumbing requirements on this job. Tell me about this. And just like you would sit down and ask an expert that's been on a project for a year, and then you're the new person on the project. If you just do the same with AI and just ask it questions, that's really kind of the first rung. And there's ways to do it. Even with the solution we have, there's ways to do that. There's not a big lift, and anybody can do that. That's one thing I like, is they make it easy access for anyone to really start. I think just using AI in your everyday life too, whether it's GPT-4o on your phone and just asking it stuff in general, and then you'll find that it's giving you a lot of information just about daily life to where you get used to using AI, and then you can take it and then use that project-specific AI tool as well. And you're like, oh, it kind of relates, right? Because you're kind of getting in the habit of using it.
Sort of builds the credibility as well.
Yeah.
Final question. This is our speculation question. If we fast forward 5 years, what does an AI-empowered design build project look like? Now, to kind of set it up, there was an article that framed 2025 as a turning point for agentic AI, which you've talked about, tools that behave more like collaborators than software. So what does that look like in 5 years?
It'll be, man, it's hard to tell with AI. So I don't know. I'm not going to say
What's your dream
AGI,
scenario?
Well, AGI, but I don't know if that's happening or not in 5 years. It could. At the minimum, I think you're going to have agents to where you don't even have to give it instructions. It knows there'll be an established basis for construction as well as architecture in every profession in our world of design, build, construct kind of stuff, to where we can just pick from it. And you can kind of do that now with marketplace and some of those things, but everything you can imagine, there'll be an agent for already built out that works perfectly. And then you'll just plug it in and there'll already be workflows in place, just like there are for BIM. Everybody kind of knows the coordination workflow now, right? Or they know how we do design documents in Revit because we've done that over 20 years. But with AI, 20 years is 5 years. Whether or not we're at the AGI point by then or not, I don't know. But I think there won't be any questions. There won't be any proving anymore. It'll just be something that'll be commonplace, that the early adopters will have an advantage because they'll have more of a AI infrastructure built out within their company, but everyone will be in agreement that it is something that everybody needs to use in our industry.
Do you think we'll be able to get to the point where, and I'll take this back to the modeling side too, you put that door there, it can't be there because it's a code violation. You can't put that toilet there because it doesn't meet ADA.
I think the information part's going to be first. What we're kind of dealing with right now is processing information in schedules and words and documents. The relationship between things is going to be next. And not only don't put that door there in the design phase, but I see it going as far as with the pipe fitter out there in the field with AR. This is getting with AR safety glasses. It'll be cheap. It'll be connected to the AI. That'll know everything about every code in the world. And this has to do with your jurisdiction and knows everything about that project to say, don't do that fitting that way, or don't do that waterproofing that way. It'll get to that point too, to where you have AI helping us with design, with codes, and AI helping us with installation and means and methods. 5 years, I don't know, but maybe beyond.
It's cool to think about.
Yeah, it's cool to think about. That's what
there are people out there right now going, is it?
Is it? No, you're not going to be out of a job. Don't worry. It'll be fine. It's just it's going to make us more efficient.
So AI is not here to take your job, but the person who knows how to use it, or at least the person who can hack their Roomba without triggering a takeover, just might. And judging by what Paul and Brian said today, it doesn't matter if you're pro-AI, anti-AI, or unsure, because it's already here on our job sites. Thank you to Brian and Paul for sharing their insights, and to you for listening, of course. And huge thanks, as always, to Fred Yee for his technical expertise in making this podcast possible. I am Erin Looney, and this is the Design Build Delivers podcast, brought to you by Archons. Learn more at archons.us/DBIA.